Welcome back everyone to Tarvel's Perspective, and today I've got twice as much Mega Man X on my mind than usual. If you've seen my breakdown of Mega Man X, you know how big of a fan I am of this series. And this was the first game I ever played in it, although the North American version. Growing up, I lived in a tiny little village of about 400 people, and the local gas station, convenience store, liquor depot, movie rental, and casino, yes, all one shop, no, I'm not exaggerating at all, had some incredible games to rent. Instead of buying most of our games growing up, we used to just rent them. And this place had stuff like Chrono Trigger, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country 2, and of course, Mega Man X2. These games have shaped my opinions on gaming to a massive degree. So let's see what makes X2 so special, shall we?
X.
この冬 X は進化するノンストップアクションロックマン X2 スーパーファミコンで発売中カプコン
The game opens up on a scene of X and his new best friend riding in on the new Ride Chasers. This guy is totally not a replacement for Zero, since he died saving X's life in the last game. Okay, so maybe he is. He's X's best friend, Rebound. We just call him Green Biker Dude, or GBD. He'll be a crucially important aspect to the story of the game moving forward, so you best not forget him and keep him in the back of your mind. They're riding towards an abandoned Reploid factory, where the last remnants of Sigma's Mavericks are hiding out 6 months after X defeated him. The Maverick Hunters have been hard at work trying to round up the last of Sigma's followers so that humanity and Reploid kind can know peace once more. With each new Maverick base defeated, they notice that the Mavericks all have an internal computer chip in them with the Sigma insignia on it. This is assumed to be the reason for Hunters turning Maverick in the first place. The Maverick Hunters eventually narrow down where these chips are being produced, and this is where X is heading to investigate. We get hit with an ominous message of the real war starting soon, and a cool little 3D wireframe of X's head. The title splashes up on the screen, and then another line of text reading, versus X Hunters. Interesting. Then X shoots or something, and the greatest title screen intro plays. Man, this always gives me the chills.
Scream. If you love this intro, scream.
Of course, you need to go change dash to R again. Sadly, these settings don't get saved on reset, so unless you're beating the entire game in one sitting, you gotta do this every time. I also completely forgot to mention the password system in the last video. The SNES Mega Man X titles don't use the typical save function like most other games did at the time, probably because the games are so short or to save on some hardware costs. Typically, passwords are way less convenient than actual save files. Having to put in this 16-digit password every time you want to pick up where you left off is a real pain in the dick. But it's not without its benefits. For one, do you remember back ages and ages ago when I mentioned how I first played this game?
Instead of buying most of our games growing up, we used to just rent them. And this place had stuff like Chrono Trigger, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country 2, and of course, Mega Man X2.
The thing about Chrono Trigger, Super Metroid, and Donkey Kong Country 2 is that they all use the save file system. So every time we would re-rent one of these games whenever they were available, some asshole would always overwrite my files and name Chrono something like Doug or Bono. This made it impossible to have a consistent playthrough, but with the password system, this was never an issue. Before returning the game to the rental store, I could write down my password and pick up right where I left off the next time I got my hands on it. Another great thing about this system is if you're sharing with other kids like your siblings, cousins, or friends, you could all essentially have your own file if you took down your passwords whenever you got to play yourself. Though this caused some serious hellish fights back in my day. Okay, so one of my cousins got further than me in Tails Adventure on the Game Gear, and I got so frustrated and lost that I bit a chunk out of my own arm, cried to my parents, and framed him. As reparations, they forced him to give me his password so I could play his file. This drama still lingers deep within the roots of my family tree, and I'm not proud of any of this. The password system also helped me get some footage of bootless X in the original game through the use of the password generator, so it's also a great tool for content creators looking for specific footage. Zero always gives you this really uplifting thumbs up too, like, hey man, you crushed it.
Get ready!
The password theme in this game is just torture though. Okay, that's enough password talk for now. Let's get into the game. Firing up the game, we pick up right where the intro left off, with X and GBD dodging blasts left and right on their right. Holy shit, oh god, oh no! He's gone. Really gone. Man, I hope you guys didn't get too attached to him, because we never see him again. Though X answers right back with some Fast and the Furious shit and ejects off his ride chaser to blow this dude's legs off!
Oh no, my legs.
What an unbelievably cool way to get revenge. This one's for Jeebs! After taking this dude out, the first thing you'll notice right away is that your legs work! You get the dash immediately as a default function of X. This is a much bigger deal than what you may initially think. It's so much more than just being able to dash in the opening level, though I gotta admit I don't hate that. In the last game, you could get through any level without the boots, since you could always choose to do Chill Penguin's level last if you really wanted to. So every level had to be made in such a way that allowed for that. Here, the levels can be designed with this function in mind, meaning bosses can move a little faster, levels can be a bit longer without feeling like they drag, and the levels themselves can be laid out in ways that really benefit dashing as a whole. Having it tied to the armor was kind of cool for the first game, since it really did feel like a big deal when compared to the OG Mega Man. But having them on default X is so much better. Also, wait, where is X's armor? We're back to Baby Blue Boy. This is one of those video game things where we just gotta shrug it off, because it's never explained. If you really want to inhale some copium, you could argue that it was damaged in the final fight against Wolf Sigma and the explosion afterwards. Or because maybe X is such a do-gooder pacifist, maybe he retires them for fear that he becomes too powerful or goes Maverick. The most likely explanation, though, is that it's just one of those video game tropes we gotta live with. Same with all the Maverick weapons, too. Kind of. That one, yeah, there's something about that in the future, but we'll get there when we get there. No need to think about it now. Just be happy that your legs function. Going through this first level, you can see robots being created on the assembly line, as well as huge mechanoids in the background. I always wondered if Reploids could create other Reploids. I really see no reason why they couldn't, though if I were Kane creating all these Reploids, I might put something in the programming that says they can't reproduce without a human being a part of the process, because oh man, do you want a robot uprising? Because that's how we get a robot uprising. In this level specifically, we don't see the humanoid animal-based Reploids being created though, just the trash bots and these big mechanoid boys. And lo and behold, that's the first boss. Super intimidating on first glance, taking up more than a full screen, until you realize a charge shot to his face nukes about 25% of his health. Super easy fight, but hey, at least it's one where we can actually win this time. We then cut away to these three silhouetted figures talking about X and his role with the Maverick Hunters, stating that those who underestimated X paid for it, and that they're going to send out this new set of Mavericks to distract X from the real plan. We can't really tell anything about them other than their names are Agile, Surgis, and Violin. And weirdly enough, their tech speeds are all different. Agile's is super fast and Violin's is painfully slow, probably an attempt at differentiating their speaking patterns. Let's try it.
This is their leader. His name is Mega Man X.
Those who underestimated him are now nothing but scrap.
We won't make the same mistake. He is powerful, but he is blind to what is happening around him.
The new stage select screen is a big improvement over the last, combining a bit of all aspects of the previous one into this layout. We can see the full world map, a preview of the level, and the name of the stage and Maverick occupying it. I love the look of this colorful map, and beyond just looking cool, it actually gets some gameplay relevance a bit later in the game, but I'll talk about that more when it happens. For poops and giggles, I went into the museum on the Legacy Collection again to see if there were any other wacky nicknames for this new set of Mavericks, but sadly there wasn't. But I did notice some insane stuff in Flame Stag's dossier. He wants to constantly erupt volcanoes to release enough ash to blot out the sun and cause a new ice age.
Who left the fridge open?
Extreme much? This buck don't fuck around. Also, for the longest time, anytime I heard the word dossier, I always thought someone was saying .ca, like a Canadian website. I'm really stupid. Whenever I replay X2, I always head to the same level first, which I highly encourage for an optimized route, and that is... Okay, wait, stop! Stop! Do you see it? Look harder.
Look hard.
Wow, really? You can't see it? Wow. And you call yourselves gamers? The heart tank is right here. Duh! Yeah, so this is one of the easiest heart tanks to get in the game, with the Titanic-sized asterisk being that you already know where it is. This is one of the most despicably hidden heart tanks in the game. I'm gonna drop a not-so-hot take about gaming in general right here, but I hate intangible walls in video games. A lot of my favorite games have them, and I'm never happy about it. Metroid, Final Fantasy, and now Mega Man X. They're especially heinous if you're given tools to find them, and then those tools don't work either. Looking at you, stupid Metroid. To give this one a break, the game does give you a tool to find it, but I'll touch on that more once we actually get it. Still, the whole trope of intangible walls that provide no visual clue is one of my least favorites. It's because, like, once you show the player that this is a possibility, suddenly I've got to question every surface I see. You've shown me that you will do this. How do I know you won't do it again in the future? So my treasure hunting
Goopy Goblin gamer brain
is now gonna force me to rub my face against every surface just in case you hid something there. And if there's nothing else to be found, I ruined my entire experience by searching for something that was never gonna be there. Or I do find something which doubles down on that feeling of I must caress every surface I find, and totally kills the pacing. Sorry Donkey Kong Country 2 for the low-key shit kicking, but man, you do this a lot. If you're gonna trick me into rubbing everything down, you better make it worth my while. Okay, rant over. Wire Sponge's level is an artificial weather control center, whose climate is controlled by these wizard orbs. It can turn the level scorching hot, create a blistering rainstorm, or even freeze the entire stage if you come back here with the ice weapon.
Who left the fridge open?
If you come back here with all the Maverick weapons, you can actually control the weather here by hitting the orb. I usually never do, since the route I'm on pretty much guarantees you won't need to do a single backtrack to get all the upgrades in the game. But it's there for funsies. Hopping up here will grab you your first sub-tank, and the rest of the level is pretty breezy. Before entering the boss room, however, X needs to stop and ask himself one question.
Do you think you're sponge-worthy?
Yes, I think I'm sponge-worthy. I think I'm very sponge-worthy.
Pickle Rick here is a decently challenging boss to start off with. He can deflect your shots with his helicopter vine and spew his seed all over the arena to lay some obstacles for X. Then once you get him down to a certain HP threshold, he unleashes a desperation attack which makes him invincible as he summons thunderbolts down upon you. Oh god, the gherkin is jerking! The whole desperation attack thing is a fun addition to the Maverick fights, since the bosses in X1 didn't really have them. They're fun, but they can also be annoying in that a lot of the times it just means the Maverick is invincible for a few seconds, and you just gotta wait around or dodge. They're hit or miss, but they add some excitement to the fights. After learning his patterns, it shouldn't be long before you see Sponge's vine sauce all over the floor. Beating him equips X with the Strike Chain, a weapon that's more used for utility than it is for raw damage. It lets X attach to walls and web zip around with ease, which allows us to fully explore the next level. I friggin' love this level. Might even be my favorite Maverick stage in the game. Someone let Wheel Gator control a colossal dinosaur tank, and it just rips through the city unopposed. Well, I guess we're here to oppose it, but still, the set piece this creates is unforgettable. It does come with a little nitpick though. It's got some mean screen shake. This doesn't bother me that much since I find it adds to the atmosphere on being on a giant moving tank, though I will admit, playing this on the Legacy Collection in full HD, the shaky pixels were a lot more noticeable than they would have been back in the CRT days. A few seconds after entering the dino tank, you'll come across this area, and you can see there's something up there, but the walls are positioned in such a way that you can't really jump over. Thankfully, we've got our web swing ability to help us. It's a really finicky, awkward thing to land, but if you do it just right, you'll be rewarded with the first Dr. Light capsule, the X-Buster upgrade. Along with the standard ability to charge up your Maverick weapons, this upgrade allows X to shoot a charge shot out of both of his hands, and it's sick! Honestly, it's my favorite Buster upgrade in the entire series. You can blast both of these out at once, or shoot one and hold the other for when you need it. The best part though, is when using this against bosses, the iframes from the first shot are ignored if the second shot comes out right after, meaning you can deal truckloads of damage if you hit them with the old 1-2 punch of blasts. And it just looks cool as hell seeing X use both his left and right arms to fire these out. I love it so much! I love it so much that I spent too much money on this thing! Moving along, You run into this game's ride armor, the Rabbit. This thing is so fun to control. You can slam enemies with your drill fists, charge it up to unleash a devastating dash attack, and can also use this thing to dash and hover over huge distances. It's such a fun power trip. Sadly, it doesn't last that long here underneath the Dino Tank, since we need to climb this ladder and find yet another heart tank. It's hidden on top of this wall of spikes, which is impossible to climb. Or is it? If you want to be cheesy about it, and let's face it, I do, you can bait this little Dinobot here to shoot his bullets to the left, and jump into one of them as they're soaring through the air. While you're damaged and flashing, you won't be killed by the spikes, which allows X to very quickly jump up here without dying. Eventually you'll end up back outside the tank. And a cool thing about this level is depending on how long you're in it, the sun will actually set and you'll end up seeing the night sky if you're outside. I love these little details so much, and I'm glad it's here since they don't really have any of the cool level interactions like we had in Mega Man X1, where defeating certain Mavericks in a certain order would change the layout of another level. Kind of a bummer, but it doesn't really hurt the overall game at all. Now we have to fight Wheel Gator and wait, hold on. Wait, what's that outside? Enhance!
Shitter was full!
I don't know why of all the places Wheel Gator could have picked to hang out, he chose the literal toilet, but here we are.
You ever been to Bosnia? You ever been in this shit?
His weakness actually is the strike chain, but that's not the reason I come here second. I never use it against him anyway because it makes him dive back into the sewage and he stays there for way too long. The boss kind of sucks because of this, I'm not gonna lie. He can stay under there for so long and you're just stuck waiting around for him to emerge from the sludge. His desperation attack is the Psycho Crusher and will actually leave a damage spike in the wall wherever it hits. Pretty neat that it actually affects the arena permanently. Anyway, blast away this tank trooper and flush him down the pooper, take the spin wheel to go. Once you defeat any two Mavericks, you're met with the mysterious silhouetted threesome once more, talking about how they underestimated X's power and see now why he beat Sigma. They immediately lose confidence in the 8 Mavericks and say they need to hunt X down themselves. X heads back to Kane's lab and finds out that a group called the X Hunters contacted him and told him that they're actually in possession of Zero's body parts. We can get them back if we hunt down and defeat them. Kane lets X know that even with all Zero's parts, they can't do much without his control chip, which is still in his possession. X vows to collect these parts immediately while completely forgetting about GBD's mangled corpse outside the chip factory.
You can do whatever you want to me.
Now this is where things get interesting. On the world map, you can see which levels Violin, Surges, and Agile are hiding in by these Sigma insignias. In every single level, there's an optional X-Hunter door hidden somewhere. And if you enter one of these levels where an X-Hunter is located, these doors will open and you'll be able to fight them. These battles can be incredibly tough, especially this early in the game where you don't have many upgrades. And not only that, but you need to take them out on your first try to save Zero. If you go into a level with one of the X-Hunters and don't challenge them and complete the level, they'll be gone permanently. Anyway, it just so happened that one of them landed in the exact level I wanted to go to next. So let's do it. Right off the bat, we run into an impassable wall of dirt, with the darker dirt being impervious to X's Buster. But thankfully with Wheel Gator's weapon, we can dig straight through it. And this leads us to the first X-Hunter battle, Violin. Violin is especially tough since his ball and chain attack is insanely sporadic and very difficult to read, paired with it doing a monstrous amount of damage. His other attacks aren't too bad with him jumping around and firing off a few pot shots, but man, that ball and chain I find especially difficult to parse where it's going to land. If you win, you take the Zero parts and continue with the level. But if you lose in game over, you're spit back to the level select screen and the X-Hunters will cycle to other levels. If you really want to get Zero's parts back, you better go after them right away before your opportunity to do so is gone. As for whether or not it's actually important and or worth it to do so, I'll get into that later. Continuing on through Ostrich's level though, we get the first instance of a playable Ride Chaser. And well, the only instance of it in this game. You can only use it for a short rip, but man, it's such a blast to use. You can dash and dash jump just like X, but with everything at top speed. You can also use the blaster on the front to shoot enemies and knock down terrain to ramp over. Eventually you'll see a giant cyclone machine creating a massive sandstorm, and no weapon will put a dent in it. So why not think back to ages ago and how you blew that dude's legs clean off? That's right, that was a hit and you didn't even know it! Slam the Ride Chaser directly into this thing and blammo, it's gone. Don't worry though, you can just walk back a few feet and find a new one. And you should, because in order to get the next heart tank, you're gonna need to pull off some insane jumps. If you hit these slanted ramps with a boost at the right time, X will go soaring forward. And if you keep this up, you'll be rewarded with another heart tank and swift death! If you're truly anime though, you can Akira slide into this and save yourself while feeling like a god. And the goodies don't stop there. Just below the heart tank lies a little secret across this gap, which can also be accessed by using the spin wheel. And in here is another one of my favorite upgrades ever, the air dash boots. Oh god, the mobility and options this upgrade provides elevates the gameplay in such a huge way. I love these boots so damn much. You can start off by doing a dashless normal jump, which then allows you to dash in the air, or hop off a wall and do the same. And this opens up so many options when traversing levels or fighting bosses. It blasts the movement and, more importantly, the fun wide open. Speaking of fun, let's hop on a nuclear warhead launching, shoot it down mid-flight, and superhero fall into the desert so we can fight a giant bird. No other boss door entrance ever goes as hard as this one, dear God. Here we fight Overdrive Ostrich in one of the more unique arenas, since it's a massively sprawling horizontal level with wave-like terrain to keep things interesting. I love this and Mega Man X2 in general for having some really unique boss arenas. Ostrich is a very fun, speed-based boss who tries to run you down and cut you up with his sonic slicer. If you ever let him run off screen, he'll become a tiny little guy running in the background, and then Dragoon Stomp you in the foreground. How fun is that? Also, anyone else remember when the Anaheim Mighty Ducks became their own cartoon where they were both hockey players and superheroes? Look at this mugshot of Ostrich and tell me he wouldn't fit right in. What a Chad. Anyways, it's time for you to get mighty fucked. Time for a crab battle. Full stop, this intro area is a stop and smell the roses situation. Look at this gorgeous 16-bit background. God, I love this aesthetic. Look at how good this looks. Not only looks, but sounds. One of, if not the best Maverick level track in the game, this music matches this level perfectly. Big, chill water energy at its best. Might as well talk about the soundtrack as a whole at this point. While I don't find the soundtrack overall quite as good as Mega Man X1, I do still love it a lot. It does feel a lot like the tracks have a much grittier, dirtier guitar sound to them, this track excluded of course, which can be grating to some people. I personally dig it, but the melodies overall aren't nearly as catchy as stuff like Boomer Kawanger, Spark Mandrill, or Storm Eagle. But come on, it's a Mega Man X game soundtrack. It's like chicken wings or sex. I'm never not thinking about it. Heading into Crab's level, we end up deep in an underwater cave and see this big ol' salmon robot being released from its cage, the Sea Cantler. This giant thing will slowly creep through the level, trying to find X with its spotlight and take him down with a giant laser if you're spotted. And man, I'm loving all of these level gimmicks so far. All these levels feel so unique and interesting compared to X1. So far, we've got weather control, a tank rolling through a city with a day and night cycle, an entire level designed as a racetrack for the Ride Chaser, and now an underwater stealth takedown. I love these levels so much. This big old trout is made up of about 8 parts that are all able to be shot down one at a time. If you bust up 6 or so of its parts, you'll destroy the thing for good. And you can do this surprisingly fast. If you follow this guy all the way through the level, it will lead you straight to the optional X-Hunter room. But before that, there's a couple upgrades along the way. Above where it initially spawns, there's a heart tank that can be reached by using this game's mega fun water physics to super jump all the way over to these floating pods. Here's where the never backtracking route gets a little tricky. You'd never know this on your first playthrough, but above this area lies a sub-tank. And there's a really cheeky way to get it now. If you walk down this little ramp and jump straight up, you get an unexplained vertical boost and can grab onto this wall. And from here you can jump on the surface of the water. And as long as you're spamming the jump button, you can skip along the top and eventually grab the sub-tank. The standard way to do this is to use the charged up version of the weapon you get from Bubble Crab, but if you don't want to do any backtracking, this is the only way to do it. Now we can go back through the Cantler Cave and go head to head with the next X-Hunter. And in my case, it ended up being Agile, who I find to be the easiest of the three. All you gotta do is climb the wall, bait Agile into using this slash projectile, drop and fire, repeat. If he ever comes at you, just dash over to the other side. Super easy. The bubble can be interesting if you don't use his weakness, the spin wheel. With it though, this fight is a total joke. But without it, you need to do some rope-a-doping to have Crab expose himself. He'll constantly coat himself in this bubble shield, which makes him impervious to your X-Buster shots. You can either start blasting your way through it or trick him into dropping it himself by jumping over him. And if you've got those trusty air dash boots, doing this over his head will force him to drop his shield, jump upwards, and make him totally vulnerable. Crab battle over. This level theme is so good. Oh, so good. It's probably tied with Bubble Crab for me, and funnily enough, they both go so against the grain of the high-intensity metal and instead opt for a very chill, cool color palette vibe. It perfectly matches the shimmering crystals and all the purples, blues, and greens while battling through this icy mine. It reminds me a lot of Slip Slide Ride from Donkey Kong Country, which is my favorite level aesthetic from that game as well. God, it's just so cozy. Starting off the level, you get this Mach Speed Ice Slide, whoa! Landing next to another rabbit armor. Taking it back and immediately trying to die with it rewards you with a secret. If you dash boost across this gap and stutter your jump boosters, you'll make it all the way across the room and treat this thing like a used up old Yoshi.
Peace out, rabbit!
For your efforts, you'll get this level's heart tank
and a slow ride back to reflect on what you just did to one of your own robot kind, just to make yourself a little bit more powerful.
Oh cool, another one! Throughout the level there will be these green ice blocks which the rabbit can chew up no problem, but also these purple ice blocks which can only be destroyed by baiting this weirdly sentient emerald block to smash into it. This allows the rabbit to be able to squeeze through and be used for a longer chunk of the level, and you'll need it if you want to take on the X-Hunter, since the path to the door is walled off by the green ice here. Now we go against the third X-Hunter, Surges, who's a real pain in my ass. A lot of fan theorists think this guy is the X-Series representation of Dr. Wily, but I'm not buying it. He just goes out too unceremoniously for this to be the case. I think the only reason this theory is even a thing is because this guy's got a stash. The fight is just designed to be stupidly annoying. He encases himself in a shield that's not penetratable by using a full charge shot, and Google Docs is telling me penetratable isn't a real word, and I'm sorry, but I won't stand for it. Let's get penetratable added to the dictionary, folks. We need a new way to describe our crushes. Anytime you hit the shoot button, he throws the shield up and oh, the word's penetrable. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess I'm not as penetratable as I thought I was, due to being so stupid. Anyway, this guy will coat the ground with mines and do flips and shit. Pro tip, if you shoot a charge shot at him, don't immediately start your next charge right away, since this will trigger his shield to reappear. Wait until he eats the shot and then start charging the next one. Moving along, after this super rad, super fun giant ice slide, Yahoo! You come to a giant chasm. Slide down the left wall and here you'll find the head upgrade. And this one is something special. Not good, just special. This gives an entirely new weapon to shoot, and it's a hint target thing. It's meant to point out secrets that you otherwise would not see with your naked eye. The immediate example it gives you is that the ceiling directly above you is an intangible wall, so you can grab this one up. And this is the game's justification for including all these stupid walls in the first place. It expects you to spam this thing constantly in every level to find these secrets. Only one problem. You're completely defenseless while it's equipped. You can't shoot. You can only shoot these hint target things. I hate this, it sucks, and you're better off just looking up where the good stuff is instead of wasting hours trying to find every hidden wall. And beyond that, it's not perfectly functional either. I was trying to get it to show me where the heart tank was in Bubble Crab's level or the sub tank in Wire Sponge's level, and it just didn't. It's a neat idea, but it's just not fun in execution. I only get the headpiece because I need that complete armor look or my OCD will strangle me. It does look pretty sweet though. Crystal Snail is one of those I'm completely invulnerable for long lengths of time kind of bosses. One which tests my very little patience. Not only does he hide in his shell for long periods of time, but he really lays it on thick by spinning slower and slower the longer he goes. Stop edging me and come out of your shell so we can end this escargoon sesh already. Dude literally casts a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet curse on you and drops the frame rate mid-battle. What a dick. After collecting Zero's body parts, X rushes back to Kane's lab and delivers the goods, so Kane can get to work on fixing Zero up. And since we're dropping off robot body parts, might as well head to the scrapyard. Okay, I have no idea why this happens, but for whatever reason, this level starts with the camera so high up in the sky and follows X's magic teleporter all the way down. Anyway, this level is friggin' morbid. It's just a scrapyard of abandoned robot parts. So to put that in perspective, it'd be like if any of us went to the junkyard, but instead of trash, it was just nothing but human body parts strewn about. How does X feel about this? And oh god, the first enemy is literally hanging himself! You can't make this up, we just went full on body horror. Oh god, I shot his body off. I shot his body off! Sir, I'm sorry, sir, I'm sorry, we'll get you a new one. Oh god, I'm gonna puke. Do robots puke? Disgusting robot gore aside, this level has some fun little references to robots from X1 in the junk. Using our new crystal shot, we can turn any mid-size or small enemy into a platform that we can use to get to higher spots, including this one here, hiding the hard tank. Shortly after that, another totally bullshit secret is hidden right here in the floor. And get this, it isn't even in a section where the floor is made up of mashed up junk or scrap. It's in a section of the floor where it looks structurally sound. You're supposed to use the spin wheel to dig here, and you would think that a way to naturally convey that would be, oh, I don't know, some kind of a crack or indication of a lack of structural integrity, which shouldn't be very hard to do in a level made of trash. Whatever, dude, at least we get one of the sickest body upgrades the X series has. Not only does this thing reduce the amount of damage X takes, but it allows him to use the Giga Crush, a screen nuke that's available to use anytime X takes enough damage to fill up his meter. This move is sick. It's not great against bosses per se, but what it is great against are mini bosses. A lot of them lack the iframes that the Mavericks have, so this thing can shred mini bosses to bits instantly. Speaking of mini bosses, this weird little pink bug bot pops out of this tube and possesses the Trash Man.
I come out, I throw trash all over the ring.
This is a small bit of foreshadowing for some of the enemies you run into later in the level, who can attach directly to X and take over some of your controls, forcing you to jump or shoot like crazy. It gets especially nuts if a couple of these guys latch onto you while the overhead super magnet is pulling and pushing you upwards like the piece of trash that you are. Time to enter in here and fight the Wait, yo, what the hell is this thing? This is not the blind date I signed up for. Did I just get catfished? No, that's not until X3. Okay, here's the story. When the X Legacy Collection first came out, there wasn't a single doubt in my soul that I was gonna be getting the Platinum Trophy for this game, no matter what it took. And one of the Bronze trophies was just called Take Your Time. It tells you to watch Morph Moth's metamorphosis without interfering. And I went, wait, what? Apparently, if you never hit him in this Supa Poopa stage here and just let him do his thing, he'll grow and grow and grow until he finally bursts open into the fabulous star we were expecting from the level select screen. And I have beaten this game hundreds of times before, and I never knew this. I was always just so fast to shoot him down because once you knock off around 60% of its health, in Poopa form, he just insta-transforms. This was a mind-blowing revelation to me. Let me know in the comments if I'm alone in this or if others never knew that this was a thing. Anyways, dead. Time to buck around. Let's get bucked up. Buck around and find. All right, I'll stop. But a stag as a Maverick is just so rad. Gets the Canadian in me all bucking excited. The volcano level has a killer upbeat track to match the urgency and danger felt when traversing through all this liquid hot magma. Right off the rip, this weird beetle looking thing comes charging at you and will smash its face directly into the solid rock if you paid him to do so. Or hop on its extremely convenient platform and it'll take you to the heavens, allowing you to grab another sub-tank. Diving deeper into the volcano, you eventually reach a vertical shaft that is constantly filling with lava in one of the coolest set pieces in the game. You need to climb out of here as fast as possible to avoid getting swallowed whole by the molten wave. And they even have the balls to put a heart tank here behind a destructible wall just to add to the tension. So sick! They even used this scene in the anime intro of the next game because they knew just how cool it was. Love it. Making our way through the man-made volcano, we come to another vertical platforming challenge, this time covered in hairspray bottles with a little bug that can fart on it to create a blast of fire, further showing why we banned CFCs in the first place. And the fight with the stag himself, oh man, what a perfect reflection of the level, and Mega Man X2 as a whole with its unique boss fights and arenas. The whole thing is in the core of the volcano in a huge vertical shaft. Climbing up the walls during the fight to try and perfectly time your shots with Stag, who is bouncing from wall to wall trying his best to fire fist you into oblivion, is so friggin' awesome. I love it. Eventually he will turn up the heat and change to blue flame while also being able to shoryuken your ass into the air and come slamming back down to earth. This is the coolest Maverick ever, dude. What? Yeah, no, Flame Stag is by far my favorite Maverick from this game and probably the entire SNES trilogy. His design, his fight, his frankly ridiculous ideals, everything to do with him is peak. Huge fan, no bias whatsoever. Finally, we come to Magna Centipede's level. And hold on a minute, why have I seen this before? The wooba wooba green ball thing, I know I've seen this before. Oh, right, this is where the X Hunters were having their discreet little conversations about X. This is an actual level? Okay, that's pretty friggin' cool, I'm not gonna lie. I do love it when games do this trope, being able to visit a set piece you recognize from a cutscene later on in the game. Kingdom Hearts 2 does this really well with the opening Roxas section. Gives the game world a sense of interconnectivity. Big fan. Anyway, this level is yet another super fun gimmick, stealth mode. Through the level there are these yellow spotlights, and if X ever steps into them, the alarms start blaring, platforms fall from under your feet, and the turrets come down to blast you. It's really intense, and you're kind of punished for getting spotted, since if you do, you can't access the final heart tank hiding above, since there's nothing for you to latch onto if the turrets come down. I love that! You can run through guns blazing if you want, but you're rewarded for taking your time and avoiding detection. Also, a really interesting way to get the background elements integrated into the gameplay. Then we run into this insta-kill squishy nightmare of giant blocks trying to mash you up, like being stuck in a Tetris game while it's still happening. If you manage to squeeze through this last section fast enough, there's a block waiting here that will slide to the right and then drop. If you hop off of it, you can get to this section up here and grab the final upgrade, the 4th sub-tank. Don't sweat it if you miss it though, because the Flame Stag is here to impress us once again. If you use the Speed Burner's charged up attack, it will send X flying forward in a fiery dash. But the coolest thing about this is, you can do it after you do an air dash. And not only that, but once it's finished, you can air dash again. So you can essentially use this thing to do a triple air dash, allowing you to reach this area no problem if you miss the block. And with that, every collectible has been obtained, not a single backtrack required whatsoever. From this point on, if you're ever scanned by the computer, it's just gonna make for a much tougher mid-boss fight with this guy. Each time X gets scanned, his data gets uploaded into this mini-boss, which makes him much tougher to defeat. It's crazy that all of X's data and specs are shown here on the screen as if he's being watched, nay, hunted by the X Hunters. The names of the enemy. Then it's a full alert mad dash to the end, where we face off against Magna Centipede. This teleporting shuriken throwing ninja not only razzle dazzles you with ninjutsu, but is also able to poison and download X's data and remove features from his body. If he gets his tail into you, he can prevent you from charging your X Buster, cut your jump height in half, or even take away your mobility by preventing you from dashing. He debuffs the crap out of you. His whole level was designed to collect as much data from you as possible, and now he's using it against you in a boss fight. Ludo narrative whatever, am I right, gamers? So sick. Okay, now it's time for the X Hunters to be the X Hunted, baby! Kane lets X know he's found their base at the North Pole, and that Zero still isn't reactivated. But what do we need Zero for? We've already busted these fools up fine without him. Let's go! Oh my ears. What is this delectable ditty? This right here is my favorite track in the entirety of the Mega Man X SNES trilogy. This is pure hype. This is X's revenge and stalwart spirit made manifest. This is the moment where X becomes the hunter. The Maverick Hunter! This is for Zero. This is for human and Reploid kind. This is for GBD, you sons of bitches! Oh, I love it so much. My only real complaint with it is that it's a bit of a short loop, but I don't care. It's a boombastic banger that really gets me excited to dive into these final few levels and put an end to this group of anti-X assholes once and for all. These levels are full of callbacks, pulling from various chunks of the other levels we've already visited, especially the opening facility. And with any good final castle in a Mega Man game, these levels put to test everything you've learned so far and demand mastery of the game's mechanics and familiarity with the tools you've obtained along the way. Just don't bother using the headpiece here, really. There's only one thing worth finding, and I'ma just tell you where it is. First boss, a rematch with Violent. It's basically identical to the first. The only difference being he spawns these little blocks which provide some platforms and also have collision with his spike ball attack, making it even less predictable. Though honestly, I find that these actually help you more than they hurt you. I find his spike ball gets all gummed up more frequently with these things, whereas before it was just a wide open room that tripped me up more often. At this point, you might as well start ripping these guys up with their weaknesses, and Violence is Bubble Splash for some reason. Guy can't handle soap. Fun thing about the bubbles is that their projectiles will actually match your momentum. So if you dash and fire out a few of these, they travel way further and faster than if you were standing still. I love little details like this, if you hadn't noticed. You can also just charge this up, throw down a bubble shield, and stand in front of him if you want to make this fight truly a joke. We will play the tiniest violin for you, brother. The next level is precarious as all hell. This is precision platforming, no joke. The whole level is tight corridors and insta-death traps, so be sure to use some of your Maverick weapons to their best use. I barely talked about these, but if I'm being honest with myself, none of them really stand out in a big way like Storm Tornado or Metal Blade did in previous games. And if I'm being real, that's good. They all have some use case that's hyper-specific to them, and I like that so much more than just one weapon dominating the rest. Speedburner is great for the previously mentioned Super Dash. The Magnet Mines are great at placing a projectile exactly where you want it to be, since you can control its vertical movement once it's airborne, and the others have their uses too. We'll get into those shortly. This is probably the scariest and biggest skill check screen the game has. An entire vertical shaft covered in nothing but insta-kill spikes, with only a single floating vertical platform lifting you through while fire is spouting from either side. It's time to get good or get out, hunters. Now, it's time for a rematch with Surges. And oh boy, did he ever get an upgrade. He got the 4 holes! He's completely invulnerable while he's hidden behind this wall, so the best way to open these up is ripping a fat Giga Crush. Hey, whoa, hey, crap. This will destroy all of his cannons simultaneously and give you 3 platforms to fight him with. If you take these out one by one with the Silk Shot, you'll only end up with 2. Here's an easy tip for taking him down. If you position your left foot on the edge of this middle platform and shoot a charged up Sonic Slicer, you'll always hit him and do a ton of damage. Do this a few times and Hannibal Surges will be done in no time.
This sucks, man.
Before we go diving into X Hunter Stage 3, I need to mention a neat little secret located in Overdrive Chad stage. Head back to where you get the Ride Chaser, but instead of flying over the collapsible bridge, hang a Yui and jump to this area. Bust through with the spin wheel and whip out your Silk Shot. Try shooting a couple times. Nothing but dust. XB dust busting. But if you charge up, you're showered in life! This is by far the fastest way to refill all of your sub-tanks going into the final couple levels. So if you're ever low, be sure to come back here for a quick fuel up. Another cool thing about the Silk Shot is that depending on what level you're in, it'll actually change its properties. In the Weather Control Center, it turns into leaves, in Cave type levels, it turns into rock, and in the Energon Crystal level, it'll turn into a chunk of ice. And I think that's neat. You know things are getting real when we've lost the hype music and have now moved into broody, bleak beats. Moving through this level isn't too bad if you've learned the lessons this game has taught you so far. Those lessons being, turn every enemy into a platform with the Crystal Shot. But what's truly important about this level is this area right here. Lure one of these bats over to where this ladder hangs overhead and freeze it to get up. This hallway is extremely difficult to get through, but trust me, it's worth it. When you get to this fuck mess, remember what I told you earlier.
So you can essentially use this thing to do a triple air dash.
If you're able to make it through and you've collected every power up in the game, slide down the left wall until you find this room. Make sure your HP is full before you try to do this. If you do, you'll be rewarded with the greatest gift light can give you. A Wayne's World reference.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
So remember how in Mega Man X1 Light gave us Ryu's Hadouken? Well, everyone knows that Ken is way cooler than Ryu.
Let's turn up the heat!
So this time around he gave us Ken's Flaming Shoryuken. Just like the Hadouken, this thing deals out a metric crap ton of damage to bosses, but can still only be used at full health. And it still requires you to do the proper Street Fighter input of forward, down, down, forward, shoot to pull off. But when you do, that's sublime. And right after they give this to you, they give you the prime target to use such a move on, Agile, who has been turned into this ceiling fixture. Oh god, Agile, what did they do to you? I don't know how we got from Blade Master to being turned into a Honeywell, but well, it's time to get tuned up, honey. Yeah, if you want, just sure you can Agile straight to the dead zone. Or if you can't pull it off, the Magnet Mines are perfect for this fight as well, since you can send them straight into the sky the second you shoot them. This fight is weird and dumb and I don't get it, but whatever. On to the final level!
That Shoryuken is hot, hot, hot!
It's time to finally take down whoever's behind all of this. It's definitely not no, it's definitely Sigma. Let's go! Oh, huh. This looks familiar. Is this the same final hallway leading to Sigma from X1? No, it's a teleporter leading to the Mega Man series staple, the boss refights. In order to proceed here, you need to fight every Maverick boss again in a gauntlet. And I'm kind of torn on this. On one hand, I love the sense of tradition and honoring how far X has ventured and how powerful he's become by shredding these guys apart. But on the other hand, I'm like, okay, can we get on with it? Do I really need to prove myself against these guys again after I already have in a weaker state than I am now? Anyway, this This is why I always get the Shoryuken, because if I'm able to, I always end these guys as fast as possible to get to the good stuff. Worth noting some of the funnier weakness interactions these guys have though. You can actually straight up slice Sponge in half with the Sonic Slicer and get an achievement for it. Blasting Magna Centipede with some trash will obliterate his tail off completely, making him incapable of debuffing you. Or you can be a complete bully to Crystal Snail with the Magnet Mine and never let his naked little ass ever feel safe again by dashing into his shell before he can get back in. Feels really mean. Wait, what, Sigma? He blows the place up and asks you to come play with his new toys. Man, that North Pole ain't looking so hot anymore. Just like in Donkey Kong Country, after you beat every world, you can see the Gangplank Galleon getting closer to DK Island. Here, the North Pole starts to fall apart after X beats each level, really selling the fact that he's finally sticking it to the X Hunters. So let's get into the oh crap, I misclicked or something. Is this is just Magna Centipede's level. But wait, the music's different. It's the music from the opening level. Okay, what is going on here? This level is exactly the same? Except wait, there's Daddy! And he's got Black Zero with him. And he's gone. The real Zero busts in and completely decimates Sigma's Zero clone. Sigma is dumbfounded, but tells Zero that he knows his secret and that he was always destined to follow Sigma. Zero goes, whatever, I still don't like you because you're a stupid poop face. Resurrected Zero here has some serious upgrades. He's got big old shoulder pads and he's got a green saber weapon, not unlike what Sigma used in X1. Is it the same saber? I'm not entirely sure. Either way, Zero is back, baby. He goes on to destroy the main computer of this clearly very important set piece level and lets X know to go fight Sigma below. But hold the phone! It's time to do a little bit of time traveling. What if we didn't save Zero? What if we just let the X Hunters take Zero's parts? If you end up not retrieving all 3 of Zero's body parts, the X Hunters will come to Kane's base and steal the control chip. And instead of a fake Black Zero here with Sigma, it's the real Zero. And he fights you! And it's fucking awesome! This fight is so sick! A true battle between a fully powered X and a resurrected, upgraded Zero. The music is incredible, and the battle wages as these two best friends trade blows until one falls. It's one of the best boss fights in the entire game. So I ask you, is it even worth saving Zero? Because if you're a good boy and do the right thing, you're totally robbed of one of the best gameplay experiences this game has to offer. I'm not gonna lie, I almost never save Zero when I replay this game, because the fight against him is so much better than doing all the 3 X Hunter fights in the standard levels. You don't actually kill him either. The plot unfolds essentially the same after the fight. And canon-wise, Mega Man X5 confirms that what happens is that you do save Zero, and he himself defeats his fake doppelganger. But man, missing out on this fight because you went the extra mile is a sin. I would so much rather that you earn an insanely cool optional boss fight for going out of your way to take the extra step, but instead you're kind of punished for it. Sure, it makes this final gauntlet a little easier by removing an entire boss phase, but for a veteran player like me, I want every cool ass fight I can get. Anyways, it's time to end this. Let's take the dive and go after Sigma, who is rocking some Wolverine claws this time around instead of a sword. I approve of this change. I think he looks way more badass this time around. And the music matches this updated and speedier Sigma. I also noticed that he uses the electric spark as one of his weapons from X1, and even goes as far as to use the charged up version as well, which funnily enough was his weakness in the last game. So it looks like Sigma is really adapting to anything we throw at him, and is taking what he learned and putting it to use. Can he also reach the same potential that X was built to aspire to? Only time will tell. Giving him the Sonic Slicer will put him away pretty quick, but there ain't no way Sigma's going down after just one phase. Virus Sigma emerges as the very essence of what keeps him alive. A 3D wireframe trying to possess X once and for all. A creepy, foreboding theme starts to play as you battle this thing. And what's even creepier than the music is the fact that this thing has no life bar. It's the only boss in the entire X series that has HP, but it isn't shown to the player. It's really scary. You can only assume you're hurting him in this pure virus form. The only way you know you're doing any damage is that he'll gradually shift his color the longer the fight goes on and the more damage he takes. He'll summon various Maverick bots to fight you, as well as disappear and reappear over X himself in an attempt to take him over. Of all the weapons to use here, the strike chain is his weakness, and will take him down pretty quick. After he's finally taken out, he lets X know that every defeat only makes him stronger, and that he's unsure why Zero acted the way he did, since he's the last of the Doctor's creation, heavily implying that Dr. Mario was behind this all along. X and Zero share a bromance on the Arctic Ocean watching the horizon. X asks himself some very heavy philosophical questions, like who or what must be sacrificed in order to obtain the world peace that his creator Dr. Light once dreamed of. Ain't free thought and sentience a total bitch sometimes? Only the future knows for sure what it has in store for all of us. And sadly for X, it's been like 20 years since we've seen him star in his own game. I know there's so much more potential to be unlocked from this series, so I hope we get the fabled Mega Man X9 someday. That said, if it wasn't obvious by now, I absolutely adore this game. Yes, I have a lot of fond memories and nostalgia, but I truly believe this game holds up even today. It adds some core series staples to the formula, expands on the backstories of its characters, and it's just plain fun. It's my favorite of the SNES trilogy, which means no doubt this belongs at the top of the S tier. Huge thanks, as always, go out to my supporters on Patreon, including all of those on screen, as well as Pink Pools, Max Jez, Connor Binder, Ryuzaki Law, Star Fox, The Duke of Dorks, Husser, Shadow Force, Craw, Sir Slush, Abunai Gaming, Mr. Toodles, Shalty, Senno Knight, Dr. Katz, Redmond, Piricom, The Wise Vivi, Welfare High, Maro Chimera, Luna, Oligodendroglia, The Unknown, Officer Jarpus, Soupy, Lizard, Luigi Rules, Noteblock, Gamerbug, and Elysium. If you'd also like to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/TarvaldsQuest and check out some of the tiers and rewards. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next quest.